everyone, I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson with Dingo and a coach. I am Dingo, and that is the coach Steve Ellis. And Steve, our next guest, I'm super excited, man. Was fortunate enough to coach him in football, and
Yep.
got to watch him grow, go to the collegiate level, and do all that. And not only is he just a great, was a great football player and a great coach, but man, I tell you what, he's one of the best guys that you'll ever meet, man. I'm excited to talk to Barry Wulf tonight.
Well, it's really cool because we actually know him a little bit.
Yeah,
Some of these other guests, we're just starstruck. Not that we're not with Barry, of course we are, because I want to hear about Barry's coaching career and how
right.
successful he's been, and it's very cool that he has done as well as he has done, and is going to continue to do as well.
Yeah, so it is awesome. As we said, joining us is Barry Wulf. Barry, man, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's great to be on the show, guys. Really just humbled and honored to be a part of this. Telling you pre-show, I've watched a bunch of your guys' shows and follow you guys. So really just appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with y'all.
It's great, man. It's great seeing you as always. It's been a while. I run into you every once in a while, but let's go back to your days of growing up in Anderson. Let's talk about what it was like for you growing up in Anderson. What side of the town you grew up in Anderson?
Yeah, so it's funny. So I was actually born in Kansas City, Missouri. My dad worked for Procter & Gamble, and then we moved to Chicago. And then when I was like 3.5, 4, we moved to Cincinnati. And the deal was like the old man was supposed to only be there for like a year or so. And as luck would have it, he ended up growing through the Procter & Gamble company, and we ended up making roots. So we lived over in the Sherwood Forest District. I went to Sherwood Elementary, proud alum, Grantham Way All-Star.
Yes.
We had a bunch of Anderson folks over there. So, yeah, and then ended up, I think at that time when I went to middle school, they consolidated over to Forest Hills. So then it was a mash of us and
Right.
Turpin. Then they broke us back off. And it's funny, literally where my backyard was, the people behind us, they went to Turpin. And on our side of Grantham Bay, we all went to Anderson. So I praise God every day that I got to go to Anderson. I promise you that.
No, I appreciate it. You lived by Dorco, didn't you?
Right across from the street from the Dorcos. You could probably remember the Rays. Jim Ray played soccer. The Schroers, Cantwells. Gosh, there was a host of others that
Wulf
played.
lived down
Jerry
there.
Stevens was. Yeah, Jerry Stevens was a great soccer player. He lived up the road. I mean, we literally I could walk to Sherwood.
Yeah.
And of course, I always tell my kids, like, you don't know what it's like growing up. I had to walk to school in the snow. and then when I actually took my kids to where I grew up, they're like, Dad, what the heck is this?
That's awesome.
Was there ever a time where, like, because I can remember, like, they kept going back and forth, like, on the enrollment of whether or not some of the students in Sherwood would go to Anderson or go to Turpin. Was there ever a time that you thought you might be going to Turpin?
Steve, it's funny because I do remember there was always conversations about it, and there was always rumors and what was it, what is, what not. And I can tell you this much, I always told my parents, are like, ain't no way in hell I'm going to that Turpin. I said, I don't care what happens, I'm going to Anderson.
Yes, sir. I love it.
Well, so how old were you when you moved here from Kansas City?
So it was Kansas City, Kansas City, Chicago, and I think, like I said, I think it was 3.5, 4 when we pulled into Cincinnati. And like I said, and the way I learned it from my parents was it was only supposed to be a short thing, but we ended up growing roots there, and it was I couldn't trade it for anything in the world. The neighborhood we grew up in. All the parents got along, they were, they did a lot of things together, and, we could be at all of us kids could be at somebody else's house. And if we were jacking around and screwing up, man, we got whooped at everybody's house. And so, it was truly the epitome of the village, raising all the kids. So
that's right. That's right. So when you moved here, that's when you probably first started getting into sports and getting on teams. And so when you were around with the neighborhood kids, what school or what sports did you start playing?
Yeah, so started playing soccer when I was 5. Started playing, I think, baseball when I was 6, and started playing basketball when I was 7. And interestingly enough, My parents would never let me play youth football, and I to this day I don't know why. So like my very first go at it into football was not till seventh grade, and then crazy enough, we were all jacking around in the woods, and I actually broke my foot like the week before football started in middle school. So I essentially missed my whole seventh grade year. Yes.
And that was your first year.
It was my
Oh
first
my
year. I
gosh.
had to wear this like this terrible cast and this terrible boot. So
Oh,
I essentially missed all of seventh grade
I
football,
had
which was
no
supposed to
idea.
be my first year.
God, I had no idea that was, wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about, kids, they're starting them in kindergarten now, and
Yeah.
and I mean, you wonder, if there's a burnout or anything like that happens, and you started seventh grade, but probably really officially eighth grade, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's crazy, and look, I've been around sports all my life. I mean, even it's funny, and people make fun of me for having played soccer, but look, there was nothing else for me to do, and I'm ultra competitive, and I don't care what it is. We're going to compete, and we're going to go at it. So, I think to your point, Steve, I think the biggest problem that I have, with a lot of this stuff is the specialization. And I think one of the benefits that I have growing up in Anderson, being exposed to being, playing soccer and basketball and baseball, and as kids in the summer, we were always doing something else. So the ability to go from one to the next, right, really kept us in a lot of in great athletic shape. It allowed our bodies to move in different planes and all that stuff. So I
Right.
think it was easy for us to make transitions. And I think, a lot of this stuff today, these kids are specializing in, and to me, it's just nuts.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally
So
agree.
who was were you at the Forest Hills Junior High, you said?
Yeah, yeah.
So who
Mhm.
was the football coaches there? Do you
Oh
remember?
man, that was Mr. Griffith, Bruce Griffith, if
Bruce
you remember
Griffiths,
him.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then God, he had I can't remember. I saw that's funny. John Paxton on
I just saw
Facebook
that.
put that picture out, and that big fella, I forget that dude's name. He was our assistant coach. That dude didn't say much, but he was a big sucker.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so Mr. Griffith was really good. And for a kid coming into it, not knowing anything about anything, I think he was a great mentor, great teacher. And even though I had the struggles in seventh grade into eighth grade, it was really a good experience for me.
Yeah. So let's skip into high school. You get into high school and
Mhm.
your first experience with football, and Vince is there, right? I mean, Vince is already there by now,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and
So
you get
so it's
some,
funny. So yeah, so we're transitioning into high school,
yeah.
and it was right as Coach Stowe had left.
Okay.
And I'll never forget to this day, my parents drove me up to this football meeting, and there's this crazy Italian who's, addressing these kids. And I think I said to my parents, like, what the heck's wrong with this guy? He's like his veins are popping out of his head, and I don't think
Yeah.
he's met any of us.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I like Coach Soriano had me hooked, and it was funny. And he'd probably tell you this story. Both my parents worked, and a lot of the folks on our street, a lot of their parents both worked. And so as freshmen, that summer workout started, and we weren't even in high school yet. Hell, we rode our bikes from Grantham Way up to the workouts every freaking day. And
Really?
look,
Wow.
I didn't know anything about anything. We just showed up, and there's Vince, and he's in there jacking weight around, and there's Corey Mitchell and
Yep.
Sullivan and Ramirez and
Yeah.
Paxton and all these guys. So we just jumped into the fray. We didn't know any better, and
Right.
and it didn't take long to realize that there was something pretty cool about the culture that was being started. So my freshman year was Coach Soriano's first year, and again, I mean, praise God for that whole experience and what
Yeah.
we were able to go through there.
Do you remember a young punk that was one of the freshman coaches for you? I think it was
Yeah. See, they had this guy Dan Albers.
Dan Albers.
I
They only
mean,
let him coach
you
one
know,
year though.
That's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we wore him out. He figured out real quick, like, this ain't the business if I got to deal with these yahoos.
Well, hey, you know what? That's funny that you say that, because I want to see if you remember this story or not, because I have to bring it up. So, do you recall you guys did something to my house? You guys decided to roll my house
Uh-oh.
and came to practice, and they're all laughing and joking. I'm like, and I said, oh man, you guys, I said, man, I said, that's cool, but I said, there's film. I know who did it. And these guys, I mean, I remember you guys freaking out. We're like, what do you mean? I said, somebody videotaped, man. I got everybody. I know everybody that's did it. And to see your faces, you guys were like, what? Like, I could. Do you remember doing that to the house? First of all, that's number one.
I distinctly remember rolling your house, and I distinctly remember how much fun we had. I don't remember you calling us out on that, but I'm sure that's happened because we were probably so stupid. We believed that you had like a Ring doorbell back then or some
Yeah,
who knew? Yeah.
It's funny, but I tell you what, it was, and to me now, just thinking about it now, and I did not know that. I mean, so you basically played your 8th grade year, and then your freshman year, you played center, and it did an unbelievable job. I mean, for only playing that short amount of time, I mean, I know it was a learning experience for me, but I mean, it was just so cool, like you said, to be a part of that culture that Vince was setting. And I mean, he just did a phenomenal job. And I'm sure that freshman year for us was rough, but it was a lot of fun for me. I know that.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. And again, I think the cool thing, the experience that I remembered, was you and I think it was Tony Diana,
Tony
right?
Diana. There you go.
Number one, you guys really set the table, and just being around you guys. I think the other thing too that really helped us, again, stupid freshmen didn't know any better. So, we're working out in the summertime with everybody, and up on the grease board, Vince has, hey, varsity football starts this day. Well, I go home that day and I'm telling my parents, hey, I got to be at football practice this day. Well, little did I know that was only for sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
Oh.
So here I am. Yeah, I showed up for all this practice, right? And I remember, like, at the end, I had to get on the line to run, Vince's 300s, and he's like, all right, seniors up, and then freaking juniors up, and then sophomores, and I'm looking around like I'm the only freshman. Actually, it was me and Chad Lapp. He made Chad Lapp. We were the only two dummies, but we gutted it out. And honestly, that really set us up to come into the freshman camp with you and Coach Diane. And I think you guys were there too.
Yep.
And again, we didn't know any better, but now looking back on it, it was such a blessing and such a good thing for us. And I think it really kind of set us up as we went into that season.
Yeah, it was it's a ton of fun. And I know that, let's kind of talk about that with the progression from, that freshman year with us, and then just moving your way up, and how cool of an experience. And just talk about, I mean, because it really changed from your freshman year to your senior year. It was kind of the turning point, I believe. If I remember right, I think you guys beat Dayton Patterson. I think if I could be wrong, right or wrong on that.
Yeah,
talk about
that was my senior year. Yeah, so it was unbelievable. And before I go into that, I think the interesting thing for me, so again, growing up as a little fella, again, I wasn't exposed to much football. So when I was in elementary, having played soccer, I followed Anderson soccer, and that back then they were state contenders, and they had amazing players. And I remember as a kid watching them in regional finals and blah, blah. And I thought, man, I'm going to go do that someday. Well, little did I know, like, no shot at that once I got the football bug. But, the evolution, Danny, was unbelievable. Freshman year, I think, varsity went 1-9. Then sophomore year, I was fortunate enough to play a little bit. And then junior year, played, never came off the field for, offense, defense. We were 5-5 as sophomores, 5-5 as juniors. And then senior year, I think we ended up, we're either 6-4 or 7-3. I forget what it was. There was one game that it ended up counting as a forfeit, but nonetheless, that was the first winning year since like 1973 or 1972 that Anderson had ever had. And it all culminated with that Dayton Patterson. And back then, that the Harbin rankings, you only took the top 4 out of the region, and they were one of the top dogs in the region. And there was a backstory to that, because a bunch of us were at, I think it was the Ohio State camp that summer, and we got into it with a bunch of kids from Dayton-Patterson. And I'll never forget, we were jawing through the camp and it almost came to blows, but then they came down to play us. And of course, I had to pop off after we whooped them. I said, y'all should have just kept your mouth shut. And but that win was huge, and it was too much fun not to let that one go.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one. That's an awesome going down memory lane on that, because I just remember that's kind of when you play. That's when it started turning, and then that's when it opened up and just became what Anderson football is today.
Yeah, and it was, and even after we had left, I think you're right. I think that the following year they were 9-1 and in the playoffs every year after that, and it's just amazing the way that whole entire community just pivoted, because that was a soccer community, right? And then all of a sudden 180, and now it's a football community. And I don't get back down there much, but when I do, man, I have some of the best memories of my time there.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing how the standards have changed, because when we were in school, and like you said, going back to the 70s, it wasn't very good. And then when you guys went 5-5, I mean, they almost had a ticker tape parade down Beachfront Avenue. But if a team were to go 5-5 now at Anderson, they would ask what's wrong. They would wonder what's going on. Am I right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's it's so much fun, and we may get to this, but fast forward, honestly, I think the last time I was down there was back in 2021, coaching for Clint Massey when we came down and played Anderson, and daggone if we shouldn't have damn beat those guys, but they played a little bit better than us. But that was, I can't tell you the flood of emotions that I had coming back there, playing those guys, and just walking around, pregame, and thinking all the things that I did and the experiences I had. So that was truly a special time for me.
I bet it was weird, man. It had been, and Pryor, he knows I give him a hard time all the time. I took some, to make that call that he did on 4th down. That's all I got to say.
Oh, dude, like when he called that, I was on the headset like, this dude's nuts. We're gonna freaking win this game. And sure enough, we couldn't get off the field on that 4th down. I'm like, Lord have mercy. But
I know, it's crazy.
Funny you say that too, Danny. So one of the things too is I used to help Bob Schroer, that lived on our street. If you know the Schroer family, they had a bunch of kids go to the Anderson. Jimmy was my age. We played ball together. He always did the chain gang. So I remember as a little kid, sometimes we'd go to the football games, and Jimmy and I and a bunch of other kids, we'd mess around on the visitor side. And, for the Massey game, we were over there, and I was thinking, God, I remember when I was a little kid just running around here watching these. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
So what else did you play in high school, Barry, besides football?
So football, basketball, and then I played baseball up until my junior year. And then my senior year, I went out and did track.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What made that switch?
The fact that after my junior year, I forgot how to hit, and old poor Coach Heimball, he's like, I don't know what happened to you, but I don't know if I can keep you around. So he actually ended up cutting me my senior year from baseball. It's one of those things, but for me, I was like, well, look, I'll figure something out. And it was great. It was a blessing, because one of my favorite teachers, Andy Wulf, said, well, listen, if you're not doing anything, why don't you come out for track? Because I know you want to play college football, and we could use somebody to throw shot and disc. I'm like, perfect, let's go. And
I can say that.
Again, well, and again, it couldn't have worked out better, because and Coach Wulf was one of my favorite teachers, and still to this day, if I run into him, I mean, I would tell him what an amazing mentor he was to me, even though I wasn't a full-time track athlete. But just that year being around him and all that stuff was such a blessing.
Yeah. Well, you had a great run, even though it was short-lived in high school, not starting football really till 8th grade. But what did you end up doing after high school? Did you go and play anywhere? Did you get recruited?
Yeah. So I was being recruited by a lot of D2s and D3s, and I ended up going to play at Wilmington College, and It was a great experience. Honestly, it was for me, it was kind of like walking back into another Anderson high school. They brought in a brand new coach. Our freshman year, we went 1-9. And then I think my sophomore year, we might have went like 4-6. My junior year, we were 6-4. And then my senior year, I think we were maybe 5-5 again. But anyways, my junior and senior year, we ended up competing for the league title. So again, it was kind of this whole rebuilding thing, but certainly a great experience and really kind of propelled me into, a lot of the things that I've been blessed and fortunate enough to do once I graduated from college.
So, all right. So you went to Wilmington and played, and then you went on to coach there. Is that right?
Yeah. So one of the things that attracted me to Wilmington was, number one, I knew I could play. I ended up being a 4-year starter, played tight end in some pretty prolific offenses in my junior and senior year. I still had the abilities to kick thanks to soccer. So I did all the punting, just like I did all the kicking at Anderson. Actually, dubious enough, I still hold some records for punting at Wilmington College.
Really?
But yeah, so I started. I thought, I thought I could go be like in the medical field, and Wilmington had this amazing athletic training program. Got in there, didn't really jive. So then I went to business, and that didn't work out either. And then I wound up in education, and that's where kind of my passion for coaching and teaching came out. And at that point, it was my sophomore year. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get an education degree. I'm going to go high school. I'm going to be a high school football coach, kind of like Coach Suriano, and all the great coaches that were around me. So I kind of had everything mapped out. The problem was, because I messed around with my majors, I still needed an extra semester, and I exhausted my eligibility. So my head coach and my offensive line coach, who were two amazing mentors in my life, said, look, you got one more semester. Why don't you help us coach, get you some experience on your resume. And then when you graduate, then you'll have some college coaching experience. So I'm like, all right, great. Well, all it took was that one season, and I was hook, line, and sinker. I knew I wanted to coach in college. And again, my head coach, he had an illustrious career coaching. He coached, he won a national championship at Southern Illinois as an offensive coordinator. He was an assistant coach at West Virginia under Don Nealon.
Oh, wow.
He played against Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl when they lost to Rocket Ismail and some of those guys. But and then my offensive line coach, he played at Bowling Green, and he was a GA at UC. And those guys were huge mentors in my life. And so the plan was, I coached at Wilmington College, and I was going to go try to get a graduate assistant job. And after the first year, I actually interviewed for a bunch of different places, including Oklahoma State. Turned out that the head coach there, he thought he was losing his guy, but he ended up not. So I stayed at Wilmington. Instead of going into getting a teaching job, I worked a bunch of part-time jobs. I actually started coaching women's softball just to make some money. And then I coached another year. So I coached 2 years at Wilmington. And then, strangely enough, you guys get a kick out of this. So I'm helping coach our women's softball team. It was me and my offensive line coach. And so we're down at a spring break tournament in Pensacola, Florida, and it's the last day. And I get a call from my head coach, and he's like, hey, I just got off the phone with Bobby Simmons, and his guy left at Oklahoma State. Are you still interested? And I'm like, no. Heck yeah, let's freaking go. So drove home from Pensacola that Saturday morning, get in the office on Monday, talk to the coaches at Oklahoma State. And by 1 o'clock, I get on the phone with the head coach, and he's like, all right, you want the job? I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, well, there's a plane ticket waiting for you at the Cincinnati airport at 8 o'clock tonight.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So cool.
Yeah, it was go time. So, I mean, I quickly hugged everybody. I ran to my apartment where I had a bunch of stuff, loaded some stuff. I still had stuff back in the home in Cincinnati, grabbed some stuff there. My parents took me to the airport, and like 10 o'clock, Central Time, I'm touched down in Oklahoma City thinking, what the hell did I just get myself into?
That's so. So you did that for for just 1 year? Or did you do that for several years?
No, that was 2 years. So, the way I approached it was a lot of these GA positions, one of the things that they'll do is they'll pay for your master's. And I knew that would be something that would help separate me, differentiate me, no matter where it goes. So, probably one of the smartest things I did is I got enrolled in graduate school. So I was out there for about 2.5 years. So this would have been March of 97 when I flew out there. And I was there for the 97 season, the 98 season. And then I finished up my degree in the summer of 99. And then that's when I came back and started coaching at Wilmington College again.
So when you go out there, I mean, where the heck did you live? How did so you land at 10 o'clock? Where do you go? How did that all, tell us about all that?
Well, back in those days, it's not like everybody had like these, like just handy. So,
Right.
So no, I got off the plane and the guy, so I was hired to be the offensive GA. And the guy that was the defensive GA, he came by with his girlfriend, they picked me up. And the guy that had left, they were sharing, they had a house, a little small house. So I kind of just rolled right into there. He had cleaned out his stuff, and so I had a bed, I had a roof, I had a place to put my stuff. And the reason why it was so immediate, because I think I got there on a Tuesday. No, that was a Monday night. And I started in the office on Tuesday, but that Friday we were starting spring practice. So that's why the urgency was there. So literally within a couple of days, like I'm out on the practice field Friday in spring ball, getting after it and doing all that stuff. So
well, wait a minute. Did your guy back in Wilmington, did he finish the softball season?
Yeah, he finished without me, so he's never let me live it down.
Oh man, that's a great. Give me any big studs, stars, anything like Oklahoma State that you got to coach that.
Oh my gosh. So you guys may remember the name R.W. McQuarters. Had a hell of an NFL season or career. Played with San Francisco. He bounced around a couple teams. He was amazing. Guy by the name of Alonzo Mays was an All-American tight end. He bounced around for about 4 years. Probably the name you guys may know is Kevin Williams, the defensive lineman for the Minnesota Vikings that just retired about 3 years ago. I remember when we recruited him, and he was just a 6'4" skinny toothpick. And I actually had him on my scout team. And he was just an unbelievable kid, great family. Y'all might remember Dwayne Levels that played for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of my guys too. He always used to get mad at me because I would always make him like the best linebacker that we were facing, is because one of my jobs was to run the scout team against the offense. So I had all these guys, these young freshmen, and Dwayne, we used to get mad. He's like, "Oh, who I got to be this week, coach?"
Oh man, that's awesome. I mean, did you feel intimidated at all? Like, like, oh my God, can I do this? Did any of that come into play for you?
Strangely enough, no, I didn't. I probably should have, but maybe that's, where I'm just kind of naive and stupid. I think, well, and it's funny you say that though, Danny, but again, look, having been around all you guys and Coach Suriano, like I freaking knew football. And then the two guys that I talked about in my college career, like I knew football. And then having coached the 2 years before, like I was going to clinics and I was learning. I was going to all these places because I remember Vince and I'll never forget this. This is one of the greatest things. My first year after coaching, Vince calls me up and said, "Hey, I'm going down to visit Tommy." Oh crap! Down at Auburn, what was
Bowden?
Tommy Bowden? Tommy Bowden. Yeah, he's like, "I'm going to visit Tommy Bowden." I'm like, he's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" So I got in the car with Vince and we rolled down to Auburn. And while if you remember that transition when he was studying more of that spread stuff, I was with him there. And again, I'm just being a sponge trying to learn everything I can because I just wanted to be the greatest coach. So I had some knowledge. I mean, the biggest transition for me was learning their playbook, learning their, all that stuff. But there's a lot of things I knew. And I was smart enough with the guys that we had there that I would tell them, like, look, if I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know, and I'll go ask coach and figure it out. And I earned a lot of respect from those guys instead of trying to BS my way through stuff. Like if I knew it, I'd tell them. And if I didn't, I said, I don't know. Let me go find out from Coach Miles, which you guys might find that interesting. So when I got to Oklahoma State, our offensive coordinator was Les Miles.
Wow.
So he and I became peas and carrots because I was the assistant offensive line coach. He was the O-line offensive coordinator. And again, the blessing that we had being both Ohio guys, even though he went to that stupid school up north. But he saw right away, like he could go be with some of their other offense and he could leave me alone with the offensive line during certain periods and stuff. And he really gave me a platform where I could kind of just own things and do a lot of stuff. So again, another great mentor for my young coaching career as well.
That's great, man. You've had some hell of a coaches, and I'm going to swing right into one right now as you're currently, coaching right now, Clinton Massey, another legend, and McSwirly, and talk about him and coaching with him because he definitely is another legend.
Yeah, so it's funny if you guys know Dan, like there's no other greater football coach, no other greater human being. This guy is the epitome. Like I think when you look up football coach in the dictionary, there should be a picture of this guy.
I agree.
Wow. I mean, I'm telling you right now, he could motivate an ant to like lift a hat. Like this guy knows how to light a room up. And it's funny. So when I came back to Oklahoma State, I was coaching at Wilmington College. Obviously, I recruited all his kids, and I was very successful. So we got to know him. Back then, we had the Bengals there. So in Clinton Massey's kind of a poor school. I used to give like some of the Bengals stuff I'd give over to him. So we always had a great relationship. Well, in 2010, I walked away from coaching in college. I actually got out of it, went into the business world. And it was like 3 or 4 years later, he called me up and he says, hey, he's got this old gruff voice. Hey, coach, why don't you come be my defensive coordinator? I'm like, coach, I'm working at a pretty good healthcare company. I make really, really good money. I travel. I said, but I could come be a volunteer. He's like, well, hell yeah, just do that. Come out and volunteer. So I came out and I volunteered and I just walked right out there and as much as I love him, he's a great motivator, great X's and O's, not much on the organization, but we just jumped right in and we just started coaching. It was like that. And pretty soon, like throughout the course of the season, he's like, you take the offensive line and the defensive line. I'm like, sure, absolutely. That's only my bread and butter. And that was, that would have been, my oldest son was at 7th grade. So I think this fall will be my 10th year coaching at Clinton Massey as a kind of part-time volunteer.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is absolutely. And I'll tell you what, you've had some really, really good years too.
Yeah. It's, I mean, again, I attribute it a lot, Danny. It's a lot like Anderson, right? Like number one, Coach McSorley built this because before Coach got here, it was about the time I was leaving for Oklahoma State. Clinton Massey was just an average run-of-the-mill, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm telling you, Coach McSorley brought a process. He invigorated the weight program, speed and conditioning. Then he brought in he started a wrestling program. He had come from Graham High School where wrestling is king and just built a culture of toughness. Right. And it didn't happen overnight. It took 4 or 5 years, but all of a sudden at Massey, they got to the playoffs and they wanted more and they wanted more. Yeah. And then, what was it? They won back-to-back state titles in 13, 20, and 12 and 13. And then I came on board in 14. And like, I think for the first 4 or 5 years, every year we're in a regional final. So like I walked into just this unbelievable culture and you guys would be amazed because honestly, I mean, this program, it runs itself. These kids, I mean, you want to talk about investing and trying to uplift the standard that's been laid before them. And then to your point, Danny, the 21 team that we won the state title that year. We lost to Anderson, but after that, we went on a run for unbelievable, and it was such a special time. And again, memories I'll never forget and always cherish. In my career.
Yeah. Just real quick, I got to ask you a question, Barry. What about obviously we're Anderson guys through and through, and and all that
Mhm.
stuff. And I obviously got to broadcast when Anderson went to the state championship and won it all. And I know it was a special moment for me because I played on those really, 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 really bad Stowe teams, and then to be there
Yeah.
at Massillon Stadium, and I'm in tears because my high school's playing for the state championship in front of 15, 20,000. What was that? I mean, did that same thing for you? It was like just couldn't believe that Anderson won a state
Yeah.
championship.
Yeah. I mean, I forget where I was. Gosh, what year would have that was
I've
the
been
year
07.
after
Oh,
Coach
oh
Stringer
seven.
won. Yeah. So I was still coaching at Wilmington College, and I wasn't up there for those games, but I'll promise you, I was so in tune. And when I saw that scar, like I probably teared up, and
Yep.
my heart was just beating so proud because I'm like, they finally did it, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
And what a blessing, and that whole community was so deserving for so many people that had invested, right? You think about, Danny, you and all the other coaches and all the players that, really put a brick into that house.
Yeah.
That was a special moment for everybody that's ever put on orange and black.
I totally agree, man. It was pretty awesome moment.
Yeah. I want to go back real quick, Barry, and ask you, because we've asked this to a couple of other people that have gone on to play in college. The whole name of this podcast is This Week in Anderson. We talk about, growing up in Anderson and going to school in Anderson. How much did going to school at Anderson, not only school wise, but football
Mhm.
wise, did that prepare you for when you went and played at Wilmington?
Immensely. I mean, the foundation that we had, from a football perspective, the things that we were taught from a technical aspect, from a schematic, I mean, I walked into college, and, college can be somewhat complex, but for me, I mean, I picked it up simple. It was one of the reasons I was able to have success. One of the reasons why I was able to play as a freshman, just because I could understand concepts super quick. And
Yeah.
that's 100% attributed to the things that I learned, again, from Bob Parrish, from Bob Mullinax, from Jeff Geesting, from Danny, from you, from Randy Corbett. I mean, my
Yeah.
gosh, all these
Yeah.
things from all these guys, the things that they invested into me were able to come out in my college career.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
So where do we talked about before we got on the air here, but where do you live now?
Yeah, so we live outside of Wilmington. It's a Wilmington address, but like you said, we're closer to Clinton, Massey. So like if y'all come up 71, the first exit Wilmington Road, past the Jeremiah Bridge. If you
Yep.
take that Wilmington Road, come in about 10 miles, well, look, about 8 miles, you run into Massey. If you
Okay.
go about another 3 or 4 miles and take a left, you'll kind of come over to the about the area where we live.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
tell us about your family, your kids, how old they are and where they're at now.
Yeah, so three amazing, beautiful kids. My son Davis is 22. He's actually at West Point. He was recruited to play
Wow.
football there.
Wow, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
played a couple years of football. So he's finishing up his junior year as a cadet there. Then my middle daughter Bree, she'll be 20 in 9 days. Bree's my special one. Bree has a multitude of special needs. She's a very, very complex kid. Matter of fact, we were told when she was 1 year old by some really good doctors at Cincinnati Children's that we needed to take her home and keep her comfortable because she's not going to last much longer, and she's getting ready to
Wow.
turn 20. So
Wow.
she's kind of a miracle child for us, and we love her to death. But and then my youngest daughter is Bailey. She's 16. She's a sophomore, varsity cheerleader, varsity cheer comp. She's run track, very active in our church and our youth group. So I couldn't be more proud of my three kids, and it's crazy. And I think you guys all have kids that, three kids from two parents, and they're all so unique in their own ways,
Yep.
but definitely super special in what they're trying to do with their lives and lead people.
That's great.
Yeah, and Barry, I'm sorry if I don't remember. How about your mom and dad, and then I know your brother Matt? And everybody doing good?
Yeah. Yeah. Mom and dad, they're doing great. They're full-time residents down in Fort Myers, Florida. The old man actually is getting ready to turn 80 this month.
Wow.
So, we got to figure out a big celebration for him, but they're doing well. They love living down there. We love visiting them, especially when my kids are on spring break. We get a free place and get out of the freaking cold of this mess in Ohio. And then Matt's doing well. Matt's over in the Westchester area. And he's got one son. He's my nephew Carson, another amazing kid. I love that kid to death. He is a junior at Lakota East. So,
that's crazy, man. That's good, man. That your family's, I said awesome, awesome family. Just remember, and I remember your mom and dad, how involved they were when we were coaching freshmen. It was awesome for them to be around. So I really love them. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of your former teammates or a lot of guys from high school?
Here and there. Being a college football coach, from the beginning of my careers, it's you don't get a lot of free time. That's a 24/7, 365 job, and even at Division III. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people I'll still connect with. Still pretty close with Nate Cosman, Kerry Corelli, Rob Thuman, Bobby Deck, Jimmy Shore. Again, these are guys I could text right now and say, hey, they need something or I need something, and we'd figure it out, all that stuff. But and look, social media helps, and you can easily get connected to that. So
that's cool. Some of the guys you just mentioned will be our golf outings coming up here in June, and Bobby unfortunately can't make it, but Jim Shore, Andreatis, Newman, all those guys will be there. And you talk about a fun time seeing those guys.
I got to get down there for one of those. I do, man. I've been a laggard not getting down there. So plus, I mean, I love the golf. So it would be good to reconnect with a lot of guys down there.
Yeah, I think
and all the old coaches there too.
Yeah,
Vince and Jeff and Bobby, they're all still there. Randy,
they all Tony
play.
Diana.
Tony Diana.
Yeah, I think the one that Nate. I know Nate's didn't do it for a while, but he started golfing the last couple of times, so it's fun.
I'm always needling him about it. Like, dude, you got to start playing. He's like, I hate golf. I'm like, just go play.
You know what I do now, Barry, is my excuse is because I suck at golf, and my excuse is that I get a foursome with Steve, and then I say, well, I'll meet you at hole whatever, and I drive the cart around for a while. I'll go hit a couple, and then I'll go drive away. So I planned it out pretty good.
He'll hit one in the woods and get pissed off, and then get back in the cart and take off.
That's pretty much it.
You're probably tracking down the beer cart is probably what
you're absolutely right about that.
You know him too well.
Yeah,
that's right.
You're absolutely right about that. So we're going to go ahead and close this up, but I probably should have warned you about this, but we always end the show about talking about some of your favorite memories. And I want to start with, we're going to do high school and then college, and then maybe, even get into your favorite teachers or anything like that. So let's start off with your favorite high school memory.
Golly, favorite high school memory. How do you choose from so many of them?
Should have warned you.
Yeah, no doubt. Gosh, honestly, my biggest memory of Anderson is being a part of the Anderson football team. And I know that might be kind of generic, but when I stop and reflect on, everything, I could tell you some of the games. I could tell you about the Walnut Hills game that I had a great game. I could tell you about the Turpin game my senior year. I thought I had a great game. But honestly, the thing that still kind of resonates, and a lot of the things that I've built a lot of my coaching career on, is what I took away was the competition, the standard of excellence, and more importantly, the camaraderie, right? The friendships, on the field, off the field, in the locker room. Those are the things that I'll stop and think about from time to time that are just imprinted on my heart. And just, again, all the coaches that, again, just poured into us and invested and believed and pushed. So I think that whole Anderson football is the thing that I'm most proud of, and the thing that it sticks out the most for me.
That's awesome. I love that answer, and there's nothing wrong with that one at all. Let's go college. Give me a favorite college memory.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I mean, look, college football was totally different than high school. It was really weird. But I loved it. It was competitive. I would say, from one particular game, probably my last game that I ever played my senior year was against Mount St. Joe. We won in a defensive struggle, like 65-56. Yeah, I don't even know if the defenses showed up, but I think I had one of my most productive games as a tight end. I think I caught like 6 balls for 150 yards and a touchdown. And I just sometimes I think about that game, and you know, people say, "Were you in the zone?" I'm like, I don't know. I just caught the ball and ran like crazy. So, but you know, again, the whole experience, because I got a lot of guys that I'm still friends with today. Matter of fact, like one of my best friends, my college roommate who lives down in Little Miami. I mean, you know, we still get together. Our kids are about the same age and kind of grew up together. So again, I go back to the camaraderie and the relationships that I built. Those are the things that I'll always cherish.
Yep.
I totally agree. And, you know, this one's a hard one for us too, because we always struggle. We always change our tune every time everybody says something. But like maybe a favorite teacher that you had at Anderson. I know Steve and I have always, you know, we'll say it one time. The next time we get someone on, we all change our minds. So you got any kind of, you said some of them already tonight, but a couple teachers that might stick out to you?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, Coach Soriano, Coach Andy Wulf. I mean, as a teacher, he was phenomenal.
Yep.
Phil Sinkovich was a great teacher and a great human being. Sandra Coleman, I mean, bless that woman's heart for putting up with some of us yahoos, and but honestly teaching us life lessons. Here's another one, because I was thinking about this. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was a teacher that really had a lot of impression on me, was Mike Loudenslager. He was a government teacher, JV basketball. I think I don't know if a lot of people liked him. I really connected with him. I thought, you know, his discipline, one of the things that he did, he always had the thought for the day on his board. You know, there's a lot of those thoughts I still have in my mind that I've shared with my players and my family and stuff. So, you know, again, I think to your guys' credit, to your point, like all these things, right? All these people that have continuously poured into, you know, all of us that, you know, it was a group effort. There were so many amazing people. Mr. Hall, I mean, I probably didn't have a great relationship with him, but you know, when you did talk to him, he treated you like a piece of gold. And so I think just, you know, again, the collective part of it all really is what set Anderson apart for me.
Yeah, it was obviously great memories. And man, I'll tell you what, this has been so cool catching up with you, man. And I was kind of hoping Anderson and Clinton Massey would play again so I can, you know, get down there with you and give you a big old hug, man. I haven't seen you in a while. So it's always great catching up with you. And hopefully we can get everybody together
Let's
again.
go. We're always looking for games. You know, these D4 and D5s, they won't play us. So we always got to go find D2 schools.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, guys, it's been great. I really appreciate it and sincerely humbled to be a part of this. Again, I love what you guys are doing, and we'll continue to follow you guys. And if there's ever anything I can do, just let me know.
We appreciate that, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
It's been great catching up with you. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Barry Wulf. You've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you guys next week.